Don't worry about whether things will be hard, because they will be. Instead, focus on the fact that these things will help you. This is why you needn't fear them. In the past 8 years, I've moved 17 times. I've also changed job fields 7 times. It's a little more nuanced than it sounds, but I think that going through all those adjustments gives me the freedom to say I'm pretty experienced at navigating life changes. Here's 3 things I learned from transitioning around and out of the Navy, completely changing career fields, and voluntarily uprooting my life more times than I care to remember. How's it going, everyone? If this is your first time here, my name is Christian. I'm a US Navy veteran and early retiree. So in case you're never in the military, then I'll just give you my Cliff Notes version of my time there. I worked on the aircraft carrier at the USS Carl Vinson, and I also changed jobs, or rates, in the military and went to the construction battalions, where I worked my way to becoming a project supervisor. In between all that, there was constant trainings and reorganizations of the battalion that I was in that made up the 17 moves. So what did I learn from all of that nonsense? I learned to travel light, never owning more things than what could fit in the trunk or the back seat of my little sedan in a single trip. And that, my friends, is where we reach our first lesson: learn to travel light. And no, I don't mean you can't own things and you have to live like a monk, occasionally sleeping in a park like I did. Yes, I actually did frequently sleep in a park while I was working on the ship, but that's a story for a different time. When I say travel light, I'm talking even more about our emotional baggage that we drag with us throughout our lives. Every time I left one command and went across the country or the world, I always kept a bunch of friends, mentors, and mentees' contact information saved in my phone. I would reach out to all of them periodically to check in and see how life was going. And more often than not, I would reach out 3 or 4 times over the course of a year with no contact from them in between. What I finally realized is that I was the only one holding up the entire relationship. If I never reached out, then they never did either. It's a little sad, sure, but life goes on. I can count on one hand the amount of lifelong friends that I have from this time in my life, because most people just didn't care enough to check up on me in the way I did for them. So what I'd like for you to take away from this lesson about traveling light is that it's not your job to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. There's probably things you've done in the past that you regret, and you think back to them with a sense of dread or anxiety, but you're the only one thinking of them. When life changes, and trust me, it will, whether you want it to or not, you can rest assured that you're allowed to leave those negative experiences and opinions in the past, because you're the only one that realizes they're still even there. You have the opportunity for a clean slate daily. The next phase of my life was measured by my last few months in the military and the transition back to civilian life. In February of 2021, for the first time in 5 years, I walked a free man. No more overly strict rules, no more required haircuts, and no more shaving daily. The problem with the lack of structure brings us to the next lesson. Make a plan and stick to it like your life depends on it. After separating from the Navy, I was briefly unemployed. Then I worked at a community college, and then as a lead IT technician, and then a system triage technician, and finally a system/network/documentation engineer for machine learning. I got pulled all over the place in that last job. Trust me, I was just as confused as you are right now. The problem with all that shuffling around is that no one was telling me what to do anymore. In the Navy, you're told where to be and when to be there. I was finally the one who got to make those decisions for myself, and at first, I did a pretty bad job. I had a very rough plan in knowing that I wanted to get into IT and eventually cybersecurity, but that was about as far as my plan went. If I had written out a better plan, then I could have saved myself a lot of headache by just sticking to it. Now, there is a balance here. If something's not working, then you have to know when it's time to pull the plug. But one of the most beneficial things that the Navy taught me is that I can endure something I dislike for a lot longer than I think. So I usually give myself a 2-year minimum when I want to pursue something now. It's just so much that you learn about yourself and the new thing you're trying in the first 2 years. And it's important that you don't quit just because you aren't seeing progress as fast as you'd like. Change, and more broadly speaking, adversity, is often the catalyst for personal development or growth. So make a plan, even if it's just a rough one to start, and stick to it through thick and thin until you reach that date that you set for yourself. You'll realize how much better you get in that time and how much stronger you actually are than you originally thought. You may even decide at that point that you don't want to quit anymore because you got good enough that you're really starting to enjoy it. So this last one is for those of you who are really feeling stuck or resistant to change. Maybe you have a big physical move coming up, or you're tired of working the job you've been in for the past few years, but you aren't ready to make the leap. My recommendation to me 10 years ago, which will hopefully also apply to anyone who's watching this video, is learn to embrace change with childlike curiosity. There's no telling what new wonders you'll learn in your life when you just jump and build your wings on the way down. Make sure you have your bases covered as best as you can before you do it. I'm not saying just quit your job blindly with no other options if you could help it. But what I am saying is that life is short. It may not feel like it now because you feel so young, but we have such limited time to really take those risks before life catches up to us. Something I haven't spoken much about on this channel is that my mom passed away when she was 56. She was healthy and full of joy, and out of nowhere, she was gone. We aren't promised tomorrow, so just don't delay for too long. You don't know the real limits of what you're capable of until you test those limits. And I do my best to test them in every way, from every angle possible, as often as I can. Does everything always work out? Of course not. But I never consider it a failure if I learned something about myself along the way. I've tried real estate investing, Airbnb management, a wholesale real estate business, college twice, freelance video production, and freelance editing. And I'm only doing one of those still today. It's okay that all of them didn't pan out the way I originally planned, because I learned something through accepting that change is inevitable. I want to prepare myself the best I can. Anyways, that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this and you're procrastinating on doing something more important, then maybe you'll enjoy this video on how I was able to stop procrastinating. Thanks for coming to hang, and I'll see you in the next one.